And good afternoon. Welcome to Sullivan Smart Sense. I'm your host, Heather Sullivan. I put a little different music on there this time. Kind of caught myself by surprise. It was kind of jazzy, right? Thanks so much for joining us. Today, we're going to tackle a huge topic for a lot of people, especially with so many people really struggling financially right now because inflation has just gone through the roof. Every week, every Tuesday at this time, we are helping you save money and get through this financial mess with different topics. And so today we're going to talk about how to get out of debt, how to manage debt, how to work with credit counselors to get through it, to get it paid off, and also ways of setting up a budget and cutting some expenses to help you deal with inflation and help you manage those credit card bills, auto loan bills, student loan bills. We know that the debt can really pile up and life happens. You know, there's no shame in it. It happens to a lot of people. And so today we want to talk about, the best ways to help you manage that and answer your questions. And we want to inspire you because joining me today, I have two wonderful guests. I have Amanda Blodgett, who has paid off $40,000 in debt. We're going to talk to her about her great success and her secrets to getting through that. And also we have Thomas Nietzsche with Money Management International joining us to talk about their credit counseling program. So join me in welcoming them both to the show. Thanks so much for being with us.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Well, let's dive right into it, Amanda. I'm dying to hear your story because I love hearing a great success story because I think people feel so overwhelmed when they realize that they have a lot of debt and they probably feel like they're drowning in it. There's no way they're ever going to be able to get out from under it. So talk to me about, did you have feelings like that? Just a little bit about sort of, what led to that point in your life and how did you start to turn it around?
Yeah, sure. So I actually found myself in a situation similarly when the economy was doing poor back in 2009, unable to really find a secure job, pay my bills. And so it just began to spiral, and I didn't seek help because I was a bit embarrassed about it. I wasn't sure how to tackle it. So after some time transpired, I decided that I did need help. And that's when I reached out to a credit consolidation program, MMI. And I was able to really see what it was that I had on my plate, to kind of look at it in regards to how much money I was wasting with percentages and fees and all the sorts of things that come with creditors. So they were able to help me reduce what was owed, guide me through the process month by month. And eventually, I was able to make smarter decisions and not be embarrassed by what I had to pay back. And I knocked it out. So.
Yeah. And let's talk about, good for you, because I know it's incredible. It really is a huge accomplishment. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And I hope that you don't feel embarrassed about it because it really is such an issue that so many people deal with. But talk about, I guess, the process that you went through and the changes that you made to make it work.
Yeah, sure. At first, it was still challenging because I still was struggling to pay what I needed to. But I was fortunate enough to be able to tap into talents that I had, really do some side work as far as creative goes. And so that was able to make me a little bit of extra income on the side. I know a lot of people will do that nowadays with Uber Eats and whatnot. So I really focused on everything that I did extra, compiling that and putting it completely toward the debt to where it would slowly diminish. And I, little by little, it just became easier and easier.
How long of a period did you have to pay it off?
Honestly, I don't remember. At first, it was several years. And then this last year or two, I really, really just focused on getting it taken care of. And I knocked a really good portion out this last year.
Wow, that's incredible. And then can you tell me a little bit about the program? Did the program help you with setting up a budget, maybe negotiating down some of the debts and the percentages and things?
Yes, they were helpful in reaching out to a lot of creditors to understand which ones would benefit me more by paying them off sooner, as well as reaching out, especially during COVID when people were struggling, putting a pause on certain accounts. So that was definitely helpful.
Okay. And what would be your advice to someone else who's beginning this process? What were the sort of the biggest lessons that you learned or changes that you made? And what would be your advice?
My advice is just to get started. Don't be ashamed or embarrassed by any means. The first step is really just contacting someone and seeking what your options are and just staying on top of it. Learning that you can't fall behind because it can easily get you back to where you started. And really just making smarter decisions as far as your financial status moving forward.
And let me ask you too, before we start talking to you, Thomas, but let me ask you, how has your credit score changed over this?
I think it's gone up maybe like 100 points so far. So I am in a great place, especially now that I'm needing to buy a new car and do those sorts of things. So
awesome. Well, it sounds like you're in a much better place to do all of that. So congratulations and thank you for sharing your story. Thomas, let's just talk a little bit about the MMI and what you guys do and sort of the overall program that can help someone dealing with a debt like this.
Right. So I'm really so glad that Amanda mentioned the Great Recession, because I actually came to work for what was then ClearPoint, later merged with MMI during the Great Recession. So that's really an interesting coincidence that we both sort of had that same impetus for engaging with MMI. So yeah, absolutely. So last year we helped about 53,000 clients across the country repay about $250 million in debt. And the way we primarily do that is through our flagship program, which is a debt management plan. And like Amanda said, the way that works is we work with creditors to reduce interest rates so that most of the payment is going towards principal instead of interest. And then it also is sort of a natural snowball method. You may have heard of the snowball debt repayment method, where as these creditors pay off, we automatically send the money to the next creditor so that that money keeps going towards your goal of paying down debt. And so the result is that people can get out of debt in an average of about 4 years. And our average client pays off about $18,000. So congratulations, you did twice the average in record time. And the beauty of the program too is that there are no any sort of prepayment penalties. You can always pay as much as you're able to. So if your situation changes and improves for the better, you can put more money towards it, and it just means you're going to finish sooner. So it's great that you were able to do that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Every time something worked to my benefit, I took that and I put it toward paying off, whether it be an entire credit card or portions of different ones. And it was
right.
Seeing that happen is motivation for you to keep going. So
exactly. And it could be from anything. It can be a windfall. It can be a tax return. It can be an inheritance. It could be a raise. If for example, we have some clients their spouses end up doing a balance transfer and they decide to pay off the DMP that way. You're not limited as to what you can do. Once you're in a DMP, you're not stuck with it. You still have options. We do, of course, have some clients who, unfortunately, situations take a turn for the worse instead of the better. So there are always options when you're dealing with debt. And that's really the biggest thing that we hear, is that people didn't understand what their options were when they came to us, and that we helped them guide them through to see what their options were, whether that's with the credit card specifically or a housing issue like rent or mortgage payment falling behind. MMI is also a HUD-approved housing counseling intermediary. So we work with people to get back on track with their mortgages as well. We had a client the other day that had a lot of medical debt, and we were able to help her apply for charity care, financial aid, and get her medical debt completely wiped out by applying for charity care with the hospital. So we can work with people in a number of ways. And it really is all about becoming an expert of your own situation, right? If you're dealing with a problem, you can't put your head in the sand. You just got to become an expert on your situation, find out what all your options are, and then compare those options and make the best choice for you.
Yeah. And I love that you guys are there to help, people, guide people through it. And as we've talked a little bit about, we don't want people to feel embarrassed about that. You were saying that's one of the biggest challenges, is sort of the stigma. So people hide and they don't want to come forward and say, I've got. How do you kind of help them feel more comfortable to talk about this?
Right. So one of our core competencies at MMI is empathy, right? So when somebody calls us, we're not here to judge. We're here to help them get to a better place, figure out what their goals are, and help them achieve those goals. So one study that we found showed that only about 8% of people who said they need debt help have actually sought it out. And we determined that stigma really is one of the primary blockers, that people are just not ready to admit, maybe even to themselves yet, that they need that help. So what we're really trying to do is reach that 92% of people who we know are out there and need debt help, but just haven't taken that first step yet. So, we really want people to know that we're a judgment-free zone here. If they call, they're not going to get any sort of pushback for how they got where they are, only a plan for getting where they want to be.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk a little bit about, because people might be wondering, what will this cost me? But I also want to talk about what the savings generally looks like, because I know you guys just took a look at what the savings can be for someone in terms of cutting out all that extra interest.
Right. So we have a proprietary CMS here called Independence, and we use that to aggregate data in a number of different ways. And one of the ways that I was really excited we were able to do that this year was to look at our average debt management plan client based on all that aggregate data from 53,000 people that we served last year, and determined, compared to making the payment at the interest rates they had before, if they made the same payment, how long would it take them to pay off and how much would they pay? And what we found is that when comparing apples to apples, the same creditors, the interest rate before they started with us and the interest rate after they started their debt management plan, that the average client could save up to $27,000 in interest and 5 years off their repayment. So I think that's really powerful when we talk about, the power of this program and what it can do for people. And, when you're talking, most of our clients get out of debt within 4 years, and that really does fly by, as I'm sure Amanda will tell you, that once you get started and you can see your progress and you start feeling better about it, it really does fly by.
Yeah, at first it seems a little, like, is this really the best decision? I don't feel like I'm making any changes. And then once you start to see those changes, you realize how beneficial it really is to getting you to where you need to be and not trying to do it on your own.
Yeah.
I think one of the other concerns that people have sometimes is their concern about their credit score. They may already be struggling with their credit score, but because of closing the accounts as part of the process, what can people expect about how it might impact their score in the beginning? But then what is a typical change once they've gone through the program?
Exactly. So one of the things about opening a debt management plan is that any of the accounts that are included in it, the accounts are closed, because part of the reason the reason it's so successful is because you can't continue to put more charges on the card, right? And if you open up new lines of credit, it can actually jeopardize the debt management plan, because your existing creditors can see what you're doing with your credit, right? They pull your credit occasionally and they can see if you open new lines of credit. So one of the things that we do when you start a debt management plan is we do close the accounts that are included. So because of that, they do ding your score a few points for each account that you close. It's just how the credit system works. However, most of the credit score is based on payment history. So as long as you stick to those payments once you've started the debt management plan, our average client sees a credit score increase of about 90 points from beginning to end. So Amanda's is right in line. If she's at about 100-point increase, that sounds about right based on averages.
And that could really make a difference. Like you were saying, Amanda, you're getting ready to buy a car. So that really, do you see that make a difference in like kind of the rates that you can qualify for auto loans and different things like that?
For sure. And I even, know that I need to be smarter about my decisions. So I do have a credit card now, but instead of treating it the way I used to, whatever I put on there, I pay in full most nearly every month. So being able to know how to make smarter decisions like that has definitely helped, especially when it comes to refinancing my home or buying a car. I'm not, stressed about that situation any longer.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Well, we've got inflation right now, and I know another service that you guys offer at MMI Thomas is just helping people with budgets in general. What would be some of your advice right now on ways that you can help people kind of take a look at their budget, or maybe even reach out to you to find a way to be able to afford life right now?
Yeah.
Because the cost of everything is out of control.
It's tough, right? Because inflation is definitely outpacing raises for sure, right? So so the first thing that I would advise is that most of the clients who come to us have never done a spending plan, at least not like a line by line item, like everything gets included spending plan, right? So that really is sort of the ground floor of any successful budget, is just knowing what's coming in and what's going out. And what we find is that many times people underestimate how much they're actually paying for things. I know when I did this for the first time, it was eating out, right? I'm like, oh, a couple $100s a month. No, it was a lot more than a couple $100s a month, because I ate out a lot and I just never really kept track of how much. And so we're not here to tell people what they should prioritize, right? Like if eating out is important to you, if that's your socialization outlet, that's fine. However, you have to intentionally prioritize that in your budget. It can't just be spending that you simply spend without acknowledging that it takes away from other obligations. So, we really hone in on what is important to people, and then being aware of how much is actually going out. Because what we find when we do the budget with our clients, a lot of people either can't say how much that they're spending on things, or they largely underestimate how much they're spending on things. And so once they see it all in one place on paper, it can really help them sort of plug those holes in their budget, so to speak. The lattes every day at Starbucks or whatever it might be. They can start being more mindful about those choices so that they can be more cognizant and apply those funds towards their actual financial goals, whether that's paying down debt or saving for a house or vacations or whatever it might be. You just really have to be aware of what's coming in and what's going out. It doesn't necessarily have to be pen and paper. There's apps that can help you do this. Your bank might have something that can help you do this. We always recommend mint.com as being a good one to use. There's any number of ways you can do it, but the important part is just doing it. You can use pen and paper, envelope system, whatever works for you. The critical piece is just starting.
Yeah. What was that process like for you, Amanda? Was there something that you changed or something that you learned going through that process?
When I started the program, they did go through with me and help me break down everything that I was, all the expenses I had. And it definitely did make me more aware that it's not just your main expenses like a mortgage or a car note. It's all of those extra little things that add up that you may not realize, and that money can be channeled elsewhere that might help you, again, reach your goals, like Thomas said, or if now, I'm learning to save instead of spend. And so things have shifted for me, and that's my goal. Instead of paying off debt, I'm now trying to save money to be prepared when something does go wrong, or, I might need that funds for something else.
Yeah. Right.
And we try to support that in a number of ways too. So there's two partnerships that I really want to call out. One is with an organization called Spring4. It's a fintech company that basically works. It has an integration on our site so that our DMP clients can go in and find resources based on their needs. So if they're in there, if they're, going through life and struggling with putting food on the table or daycare or whatever those needs might be, they can use the Spring4 platform, which is integrated on our MyMMI debt management plan portal, to go in and find those resources in their own community that can help them with those needs and help reduce the cost. You can think of it somewhat similar to like 211, where you might have a need and you call and you get referrals to someplace that can hopefully fill that need for you. And then the other integration we have is with an organization called America Saves, which is another nonprofit. And so what we do at the end of everyone's debt management program, when we send out their completion letter celebrating with them that they've completed their debt management plan, we encourage them to sign up for the America Saves Pledge, which basically just kind of, again, like Amanda said, keeps that front of mind that now that I'm done spending this money towards debt, I really want to work towards my savings, my emergency savings cushion, so that if emergencies happen in the future, I'm not relying on credit. I can rely on my own savings. So yeah, I think those are other ways that we really help people navigate, their budgets going forward.
And then you have a new tool, a digital tool, so people can kind of take a look at all of this and maybe even, get a sense of direction just by doing this online.
Right. So you can kind of think of it as like TurboTax for debt. Okay. So you can go in there and you can plug in all your expenses, your debts, your income, and it takes the creditor information as well. It has an integration. So if you choose to, you can have it automatically pull in your information off your credit report. It's completely secure, completely confidential. You don't have to talk to anybody. And we really think that's going to encourage people to explore this option more, because at the end of the process, it'll show you exactly how much the debt management plan can save you both in time and in interest, and what your debt-free date would be if you choose to start right away. So I think it's going to be a really powerful way that we can help reach more people who are suffering from the effect of that stigma, that they just aren't ready to talk to anybody about it.
Okay. And let's talk about how people can reach out to MMI and maybe, what your words someone to kind of get over that difficult decision and go ahead and get involved in doing it.
Yeah, sure. So the best way is to go to moneymanagement.org. The support is there 24/7, so you can get started online. And if you do want to talk to somebody's available 24/7 through chat or by phone. And I think what I would say is, I manage all the client reviews here at MMI, and the feedback that I see the most frequently in the thousands of reviews people have left for us is that I don't know why I didn't call sooner. I wish I'd just done this sooner. I lived with this for way too long. I thought I was going to be judged. I thought I was going to be made fun of or whatever, and people just, we let fear rule our lives a lot of times. Right. And I think this is one way that really plays out, is that people feel embarrassment about debt. And so they feel like they don't want to admit it to anybody, sometimes not even their own family members. We have clients that have gone through a DMP that have never even told their spouse. They set up a PO box, right? So the paperwork can go to a PO box. Like this is a really sensitive subject. And, you know, we've seen the studies that show that people would rather talk about drugs, politics, vaccination status, that they would rather talk about almost anything rather than debt. And it is really quite shocking. So we're really hoping that this helps people overcome that hurdle so that they don't have to feel that stigma as much. They can just go online, do it anonymously, do it securely, and get the support that they need through a chat if that's more comfortable for them.
Yeah, and when I was talking with Jim, your CEO recently, and he mentioned there are a number of people on your staff that have been through this themselves, and I would imagine that helps to make people feel comfortable too. You're talking with someone who's been there.
Right. Well, I wasn't going to bring it up until you did, but I had to laugh because when I came to what was then ClearPoint in 2008, I was in training and I was on our CMS and I was just, goofing around and I put my own name in and there was a match found and I'm like, why am I in this system? And then I thought back and I was like, oh my gosh, I talked to a counselor here about 3 years ago and I just forgot about it. I didn't start a debt management plan. I had just gotten some budgeting advice. And it was so surprising to find myself in the system here when I came to work for the organization. So yes, we definitely have former clients. We have, clients who have, or employees who have been through a debt management plan themselves. His name is Jason and his story is on our website. The short URL is moneym.org/Jason. If you want to check out his story, it's really encouraging because he was able to buy a bigger house for his family after completing his debt management plan.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love hearing the success stories. And Amanda, I love hearing yours. Thank you so much for sharing because you're such an inspiration. I'm sure so many people watching are now going, I can do this too, because they're seeing that you did this. What would be your final words of wisdom or encouragement to anybody out there who is watching?
Just to piggyback on everything that's been said, just take the step in reaching out. Every credit counselor that I spoke with throughout the duration of the program never gave me any judgment, never made me feel like I was doing something wrong or that I wasn't good enough. They were more than helpful and made me feel at ease about the decisions I was making. So definitely the first step is just to reach out and go from there because there's really no better solution than reaching out to them instead of trying to do something like that on your own.
Yeah, or for sure. Or, there's so many scams and whatnot in the debt relief space as well. So, people have to be so careful and make sure you do your due diligence, whether you're working with MMI or anybody else, do your research. I had so many clients that used to come to me who'd started with a debt settlement company, not understanding how it worked. And all their accounts went into default, into collections. And then they come to me for second advice. And I'm like, at that point, a lot of the damage is already done. A lot of these accounts are already in collections. It's too late to rehabilitate those accounts. So that's really heartbreaking when if you had talked to somebody just a couple months sooner, you could have helped them in a much real way. But going back to what you said earlier, Heather, I really want to emphasize just how important this conversation is and just how rare it is for us to find clients who are willing to talk about it externally. We surveyed about 3,000 clients last year to step forward and become MMI peer advocates. And of those 3,000 people, we had about 100 that actually responded with willingness to do that. So that's, we only had about a 4% rate of people, of even successful clients who've paid off more than $25,000 worth of debt, and have put it behind them. There's still only 4% of those people who are willing to step forward and talk about it. So we really appreciate this conversation today.
Yeah, Amanda. Yeah, I can't underscore that enough because as a journalist, we always want to talk to people who have been through whatever the topic is that we're talking about. And Thomas and I, we've even had an instance where someone says, "Yeah, I'll talk," and then they change their mind because they realize, "Oh, I don't want to be on television."
Right.
We really do appreciate it, and I think that you really are helping people to see it's a very common problem, and talking about it is the best way to help people. So I really want to underscore what he said. Thank you so much for talking about it.
For sure. Even in my network of friends and in my business, I've been really vocal about my journey. And I've had plenty of people reach out to me and say, I'm so glad you're talking about this. It's something I struggle with. I don't know where to start. And so it's just really, putting yourself out there and taking the first step. that's the best thing you could do. So
Yeah. I mean, and visibility and vulnerability is powerful, right? If you step forward like that, you change some lives. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
yeah.
You changed lives today, Amanda. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you both, Amanda and Thomas. Appreciate it so much. Again, the website for any more information is moneymanagement.org. And of course, we have that on Fox 26. Houston. Or Fox 26 Houston.com. So thank you both for joining me. And thank you for joining us. We hope that we helped answer some questions if maybe you're dealing with a debt issue of your own, or at least just gave you some ideas of ways to cut down some of your debt, cut down some of your expenses to help you get through inflation and help you make things a little bit more affordable in your life. I know that debt payments are, among the bigger payments that we have to make every month in our budgets. And so being able to cut some of that down can help to maybe free up some more money for groceries or gas or some of the other things that are rising in prices so much these days. So just send any questions if you have there on Facebook or however you're watching us. Send me those questions. We'll continue to get those answered. We'll see you back here next week with another topic. We've got a big one coming up. We're going to talk about how to save big money on prescriptions. I've got a guest that's going to show us how you can really cut down your cost for prescriptions. So you'll definitely want to join me for that. That is next Tuesday at 12:30. Until then, stay safe and thanks for joining us. Have a great afternoon.